Okay, so this project wound up being a massive project. There's heaps of different parts to it. I'm basically building a kind of a model light sort of thing. In these shots here, I'm just basically pulling it apart, keep the tube for materials. Have a bit of a fiddle inside. This is this model here has one colour changing LED and one normal LED. So I'm just basically pulling that apart and keeping a track of the parts, but I'm not going to want most of the housing. So I'm using dog toenail clippers here, actually a fantastic tool, and just cutting it all off nice and even. Yeah, basically I actually wound up breaking this before the end of the video and wound up using the one in the background, but you know, that's okay. So yeah, once I've got this all sort of trimmed down, I tape down the wires and have a crack at it with the sander. Basically just getting it all nice and flat, and I'm using the screws in it, or the screw holes in it. So this part, I was asked to design a robotic spider and screw that. That's just so much work, it's not funny. This is for a gift. But I pretty much just draw a spider. I had about 3 goes at that actually. Just showed you quickly the one that I used. Then I trace it with a blue pencil, scan it, then fiddle around in Photoshop. That's why I didn't really finish up the drawing too well. And yeah, just basically getting that into a nice 2-bit sort of state, and then output it with transparencies. And I'm using a really old quarter plate. I'll do a whole video on these coating things. Using an old quarter plate plate film printer, and the LED exposure unit is actually one of my projects that I've done in the past. I might do another video on that. This is ferric chloride. I do know that copper chloride exists. Ferric chloride just works better. It's a bit more predictable. It's actually around about the same toxicity and safety, quite frankly. And to clean it, rather than acetone, I just throw in washing soda. After a while it sort of peels off. Then there's a little bit of scraping involved. And yeah, that's what it looks like with light behind it. So the next stage, I'm just protecting the copper. That's filing rosin. Basically just give it a decent coating of this, get it all painted on nice and evenly. And then I'm going to heat it up so that it goes hard again rather than frosty, which is what I'm doing here. And that pretty much just protects the copper. It's a cheap way of doing it and fairly easy. And that's on the back side of the thing from where it'll be projected, so you won't be able to see it. And just working out the distances involved. You can see some of the colours involved. Actually get quite a nice sort of screen effect happening. I'm just using a plate scraper rather than a sander. I prefer a plate scraper, it's a lot quicker, especially on something that's pretty much already finished. This is 1/4 inch ply, kind of fancy model working ply. And you probably notice I don't make any measurements during the entire build. I pretty much just did everything by eye. I also didn't draw or plan. I sort of knew it needed to be wider at the base to make it more stable. But other than that, I pretty much just made it up as I went along. You can see the mistake I've made here actually. I made 2 pieces identical. I had to go back and make another one that was flipped. I don't bother to show that. And lots of gluing up, and I actually skipped the bit where I put it together, but it's basically just slotted together and taped, as you can see there. I use baking paper a lot because the glue that I use doesn't stick to it. It's pretty much woodworkers builders glue. One step up from, or one step nicer That's mixing wood glue with sawdust, a little bit of dishwash liquid, and just smearing that into the gaps. It works to hide small gaps. Won't work for big gaps, it looks ugly. But small gaps you can't really see it. A little bit of fiddling around with wires and what have you. You'll see the wires change colour to yellow at the end. That's because I wound up actually piggybacking a smaller solar panel onto the back of that one. Kept using that one because I'd done the screws. And here's test fit. I just use carbon paper. I've got screws in the thing, so I'll just press through the carbon paper onto the wood once I'm happy with the location, and that just puts little black dots where I can do my drilling. Handmade drill works quite nicely. Enlarge the holes a little bit, and then I'll give it a bit of a test fit. Holes for the wires. I used 2 holes so that I could put a little bit of strain relief in there. And we've got test fitted piece, happy with that, so I'll go back and remove the extra wires, basically replace them with slightly better quality wires, and solder on a new battery holder. And I actually pop little drill holes and nails into that just to locate it so that I can keep it fixed in place when I use the hot glue later. A little bit of varnish. I actually do a coat of varnish before I do the undercoat on the inside, the white paint. And the reason is it takes a couple of coats of varnish. And it actually, still got a sand, so basically it makes it a little bit easier, stops the paint, any overspill from soaking into the wood, and it just makes it a little bit easier to clean up later. I do 2 coats of that. I didn't bother to finish this too nicely, it wasn't really a priority. Nobody actually looks at the inside. I also don't finish the underside terribly much. So I'm just wrapping the panel in wax-proof paper because I'm going to put braces in the front just using bamboo skewers. And get them all nicely clamped in place and pretty much just leave them to dry. This bit's very satisfying. That's pretty much as precision a fit as I am capable of making. So yeah, after that, a little bit of tidying up, some sanding, carrying on. Basically we make everything nice and pretty, get some bevels onto there. Bit of a test fit. And when I'm happy with that, I throw the bamboo onto the bottom. This actually worked out reasonably nicely. I was able to get surprisingly good fit. A little bit more finishing up. And varnish. This whole project actually wound up taking probably 20 hours worth of work. I had 100 gigabytes worth of footage, which is something I'm not going to do again. And yeah, everything slotting in together. I like this bit, so satisfying. That click, I'm so happy with that. And that's pretty much it. It works. I've basically turned a garden light into a solar garden light into a solar spider light. That's it. The person who received it was quite happy. I would have got better footage, but all my cameras refused to focus on this with the colour changing. It's actually a really interesting thing. But yeah, done. I'm out.